Before your hands begin, before the wool touches water, before the small worlds of fiber take their shape, pause for a moment. If you have found this place today, tonight, it might be that the old stories have called you here. This is a quiet corner of the enchanted forest where fairy tales meet fiber threads, where hands remember what they once knew, and ordinary things, wool, water, light, rock, become small doors into the living magic of the seasons. So take a deep, slow, relaxing breath. Let the noise of the day fall away like snow melting from a branch. Here we work slowly. We listen. We warm small beginnings into being. And when your hands are ready and your heart is singing, step a little closer. The story's about to begin. A spring fairy tale of the woman who wormed the river. Long, long time ago, so long that the hills had not yet forgotten the footsteps of wandering spirits, there was a valley held gently between dark forests and pale fields. Birch trees stood there like watchful sisters, their trunks white, rising from the earth, as though the moon itself had planted them. A river curved through that valley. A thoughtful river, the kind of river that remembers the slow breathing of glaciers, the footsteps of elk, the time when the forest was deep and the night sky burned with stars. And every spring it remembered how to awaken everything. But in the year of this story, of long, long time ago, spring was not arriving. Winter kept their stay too long, not with storms nor rage, but with quiet stubbornness. Snow lay across the fields like a white blanket that no one had remembered to fold away. The wind moved slowly through the branches. The sky remained pale, as if dawn had forgotten how to finish. Arrival everyone was expecting. The old remembering river whispered beneath its thin skin of ice, but could not break free. The villagers waited. Goats stamped their hooves in the yards. Smoke rose from chimneys and drifted slowly into the air. Children pressed their hands against the glass, searching the hills for the first returning green. But the elders said very little. They knew winter by her name. They knew her name was Morana. They knew she was still in the fields, in the frost-threaded mornings. Morana was still walking across the sleeping earth and tucking the seeds deeper into their slumber. Morana was not a wicked winter. The old stories remind us of this. Winter is a keeper of silence. It is the long inhale of the earth. But when Morana lingers for a little too long, the soil begins to grow restless, and deep beneath the frozen ground, the seeds begin to murmur among themselves. Has the sun forgotten us? Has the world grown tired of our green, new sprouts? But warmth remembers, hands remember, and spring follows warmth. At the far edge of the valley, in a small cottage where smoke curled from the chimney, in a thin blue, lovely ribbon, and in that cottage a woman whose hands remembered more stories than her voice ever spoke. Her hair had grown the color of frost that gathers in meadow grass. Her eyes held the deep quiet of someone who's listened to rivers for centuries. Some said she had once tended sheep on the high summer hills. Others said she spun wool so fine it could pass through the eye of a needle, and a few, usually the oldest grandmothers, said she knew the gentle household magic that lives between ordinary tasks. But if you asked her, she would only smile and say, "I listen. I just listen." And this is not a very strange answer for her. For she listened to the wind, she listened to the wood, she listened to the wool, and wool remembered warmth. Remembered the sun on the back of the sheep, remembered the wind moving through tall grass, remembered the slow kindness of loving, warm hands. So one morning, before the sun had fully risen, the woman woke up and listened to the quiet of the house, to the wind brushing the leaves, to the distant murmur of the river. And in her listening, she noticed something, a scent, not flowers, not just yet, but something older, water. The faint silver smell of thawing ice, and she smiled, for that is how spring first arrives and speaks. There are no blossoms nor birds, but a memory of water returning to its flow in the world. The woman rose and opened the wooden chest beside her. Inside was wool, soft as clouds gathered at sunset, unspun fleece from sheep who had endured the long winter winds. She lifted the wool slowly. You know, wool prefers invitation, not command. Then she wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and stepped outside into the morning. Snow still covered the fields, but beneath her boots, the snow gave a different sound. Soft sigh, remembering its true nature, water. The woman walked the narrow path to the river. Birch trees lined the banks. Their white bark glowed faintly in the pale morning light. The river lay beneath its skin of ice. Not yet free, but waiting. The woman knelt beside the water. She dipped her fingers beneath the thin edge of ice. Cold bit her skin sharply. But she did not pull her hand away. Instead, she whispered, "Good morning. Good morning, old river." And the river is a listener just like the woman, only more ancient. She remembered glaciers sliding across the bones of mountains, and remembered when the forests were young, and remembered every spring that has ever turned to earth. Warmth remembers, hands remember, water remembers, and spring follows warmth. The woman gathered wool into her hands. She spread the fibers gently across, soft as clouds, soft as breath. Then she dipped her fingers once more into the river and let the water fall across the wool. The fibers darkened, softened. They began to cling together like friends leaning close to share a secret. She pressed them gently, guiding, not forcing, for she knew something the village had nearly forgotten. Spring arrives as warmth invites it and stays. From the pocket of her apron she drew a small stone, clear as river ice, smooth as moonlight resting on still water. In the oldest forest stories, a spark sometimes falls from the wing of the firebird, not a flame that devours, but an ember that waits, waiting for hands patient enough to keep it safe. She placed the stone in the center of the wool and folded the fibers around it, layer upon layer, cloud closing around light, and her hands began to roll back and forth, wool warming, fiber tightening, the quiet friction of life awakening. For warmth remembers, hands remember, spring follows warmth. She remembered the story, old as the birch trees, that says that when the firebird loses a feather, the place where it falls grows warm even in the coldest winter. Sometimes the feather becomes a glowing stone, sometimes a seed, and other times it becomes an egg. But the old storytellers whisper that such eggs do not hatch into birds. They hatch into courage, quiet courage, the kind that grows slowly in the chambers of our heart. The woman placed the first egg beside the river. Some beginnings must remain sealed. Winter was being released. Morana realized her work was finished, and somewhere far away Vesna had begun walking barefoot across the waking fields. For warmth remembers, hands remember, and spring follows warmth. Now the work of the hands is finished. The wool has been warmed, the eggs have taken their shape, and here beside us a small candle burns. Its flame moves gently, like a tiny sun, remembering its strength. Beside it the first daffodil, bright, glowing, a trumpet of spring rising from the quiet soil. For spring arrives, a little bit of warmth at a time, one seed, one egg, and a patient act of care, one after another. So if you keep these little woolen eggs nearby, on a windowsill, on a work table, on your altar, on your nature table, or beside your flower vase, let them remind you that inside every quiet beginning, a world is forming, and our work is not to rush it, but to warmly welcome it into being. For warmth remembers, hands remember, and spring arrives with warmth of interest, listening, care, and gratitude. Thank you for being here. Share this story journey with others who might enjoy it, and I will see you soon back here at the Rose and the Bee, in the realm where fiber threads meet fairy tales. Blessings to you and yours.